We have a special guest tonight who's going to help me with the training, and I'm not even going to set it up. I'm not going to tell you who he is. Some of you may already know. I'll let him tell you his story and why he has a passion for teaching and public speaking. This is a couple recommendations for you. You know, when you get started in this arena, it's an unending thing. Storytelling and speaking, and whether you decide to do it as a profession or you just decide to do it to become better at communication, or you just want to get better at work, or whatever it is, whatever human engagement that you're trying to improve, this is going to help that. And it's a never-ending mastery. Mastery in this arena will take you your whole life, and you'll always be learning something. So it's a fascinating subject. There's things to learn about it continuing. So my first two book recommendations, it was really hard for me to narrow it down to which books to recommend starting to tell you, because there's so many amazing books and videos and things that I could share with you. So I wanted to start with some that are pretty easy to get. Start with Why, with Simon Sinek, and Tell to Win, Peter Guber. Those are very easy reads, and it starts talking about the core of what is an impacting message, how to get your underlying message or your sub-message in line with your audience so that your story becomes mastery in nature. So I'm going to give you a couple pointers, and then I'm going to turn it over to our guest presenter. So let me start with this topic. The first thing is master the art of knowing, listening, hearing. And what I mean by that is the more knowledgeable you are, the more depth you have on the subject that you're talking about. Even though you never mention the volumes and volumes of information, there's something about a person who speaks from a depth of knowledge, that they're drawing from a deep well. And they can even maintain simplicity in the conversation, but you know that their depth of understanding carries a measure of weight and stability for the hearer. The person wants to know, like, and trust you. They want to become an advocate of yours, and one of the ways to do that is become knowledgeable about your subject. Be the person that they can trust, that you've done enough research to communicate on your subject matter. And so don't just tell them that you've read 1,000 books. Quote from the people that you've read. You know, mention some of your favorite authors. Mention some of the different things that you've done or the things that you've said. And there's a fine balance between self-promotion and the resume necessary to get someone's attention. And I was talking to BJ last time after we did our last call, and we talked about all the people in the profession, all the masters in our profession, who have an interesting difference between the Tony Robbins, who's really heavy promoting the Tony Robbins name and brand, and the people who very seldom do, like the Jim Rohns of the world, who say just a little bit about their life and their experience, and you know how many people they've spoken in front of. They do mention it, but it's less a sales pitch than some of the other people. And it's not right or wrong. I'm just saying that you're going to have to decide when you start talking. You need to find a place where you're comfortable doing it, because if you're uncomfortable promoting yourself, and it will come across that way. So you need to be comfortable being able to promote the level or depth of your resume as you speak. You're going to have to tell some stories about your experience to get them to trust you. But some of that can be best done with a thing that we call name dropping. And it's not like name dropping when you're at a party. It's like name dropping when you're presenting something and you're quoting masters, when you're quoting the masters of industry, when you're quoting the masters of philosophy, when you're quoting the masters of religion. And you have this way of bringing their wisdom onto the stage, shows that you're well read. And you don't have to tell people that, you know, I read every single book that Gandhi ever wrote, and every single book that you know, give the entire list of every single book that you've ever read. You can just quote enough of these people, and it's a very powerful tool for you to be able to bring this knowledge to your audience without being overly self-promoting. So there's a little hack for you in the knowing side of things. Listening is something that I try to do probably more than most people. When I go do a live event, I want to interview as many people as I possibly can to help figure out what is it that they are hoping to get from the event. What is it that they're hoping most to learn? And you want to touch their most active points in their mind and their psyche and their desire. Now, you may have a different agenda, and that's okay, but you still want to satisfy the current longing in their life, if you can. If there's a thing that they're coming for, you want to be able to address that, and that causes a level of connection with you like nothing else. There's just something about them feeling like, you know, it just felt like you spoke to me. And so if you know your audience and you know what the pains are, whether it's in a corporate environment, you know what the pains are inside the corporate environment, I want to go in beforehand and I want to hear all the gossip. I want to hear all the stories. I want to hear where all the pains are. I want to hear the number one pain, who the manager is, who's the biggest pest in the place, and who the employees are that cause the most trouble. I want to hear all the stories so that I can see where it is that most people's hearts are. I can help listen and address some of those things from this platform and touch them in a way that most people don't. Let them know that you hear their pains. Let them know that you care about them. And so whenever I do an event, I always do a pre-event. I always call people to a webinar or to a seminar and say, okay, these are the topics that I want to talk about. What are the ones that mean the most to you? And I make sure that the ones that get picked the most get taken care of. So listening is number 2. And then hearing, listen carefully to feedback. Listen carefully as you begin to present. Do everything you possibly can to ask people what they thought of it. And this is one of the hardest things for most people to do, to have criticism in your life. We're not very good at it as Americans, to be able to take critical hearing. And I think I'm pretty good at it, and it's still difficult. You know, there's still times when it's difficult to me. Like, we can only take so much. You know, when it comes to the negative side of things, we as human beings just have a measure where we can only gravitate toward correction or improvement so many things. You can't overburden us with too much stuff. So be a person that grows into that as quickly as you can. We're not going to talk about over-criticism, but just become someone who's teachable and who wants to learn. I want you to ask yourself these questions. I'm going to give you these notes for later, so you can either write them down now or you can download the notes later. I want you to ask yourself a question. Somebody's saying, Bill's speaking. That's funny. Why do you speak? I want you to answer yourself this question. Why do you want to speak? And spend some time with it. Don't answer yourself the first question. What is it that causes you to want to have an audience? And spend some time thinking about what is the initial goal, what is the initial feeling or emotion that you would have that caused you to do that, and what is the end in mind? What are the things that you hope to accomplish? So if you could wave a little magic wand, or you could predict the future, and you could say 10 years from now, I'm going to be speaking, and I'm going to be speaking to this group with this result. That's the kind of answer that I want from you. Why do you speak? Well, why do you want to learn this craft? Because there's so many different paths to take in the speaking arena that it's going to be really important for you so that you don't get overwhelmed with learning the mastery and the craft and the storytelling and other arenas. When you figure out what your one is, what your primary goal and what your agenda is, you won't spend too much time being overwhelmed with the story, with the rest of the stories. So figure out why you speak. You need to have that story continually be redefined, continually being told in your mind and heart. The next thing is, I want to talk to you about winning hearts. When you're speaking, you've probably heard it said, I've said it numerous times, but you've probably heard it said through quite a few different people, that people don't care what you know, they want to know that you care. And it's also been said that they're not going to remember what you said, they're going to remember how you made them feel. That the most important thing in this world is to touch hearts. And yes, we do want to transfer information. Yes, we do want to teach people things. We want to give them skill sets. We want to give them mindsets. We want to give them all those things. Absolutely crucial and necessary for them to become effective in life. But it's the mastery of the touch of a person's heart that will cause them to stick around or to apply the things that you taught them in a deeper, more meaningful fashion. Learning to master the art of connection is far more important than the mastery of the techniques of speaking. So be a person that understands that. And we spoke about this yesterday when it came to the writing thing. The writing and telling your story from a writing perspective, learning to weave in what I call the poetry of life, weaving in the story that touches the hearts of men. And it doesn't have to be ooey gooey emotional stuff all the time. It doesn't have to be 100% EQ stuff. It can be passion, it can be fire, it can be life and death, fire and blood. It can be something that your audience is looking for. If you speak to a bunch of guys up here in the hills of North Carolina and you start talking about mushy grandfather stuff, then they're not going to pay attention very long. But if you talk about fire and blood and, you know, changing things and moving things and growing stuff, and it's just that thing, the passion that's inside that hardy male mountain man thing, you figure out what that is and tell that story. So winning hearts is more important. What is your objective? This is probably the number one point I want to get for you before I hand it over to our guest speaker. I want to talk to you about what is your objective. Now, as you define why do you want to speak, you also want to know what is your objective. What are your incremental objectives? What do you want to cause to happen when you get in front of a crowd? Do you want applause? Do you want them to buy your books? Do you want them to come back again? Do you want to be invited to other things? Do you want it to grow your profession or your industry? What is your goal when you're speaking? And no matter which one it is, I want you guys to think about this one thing. No matter what your goals are, no matter what your objectives are, you need to learn the art of selling. And it doesn't matter what your objectives are, there's something about what you're saying. You're trying to sell them something, whether it's an idea or a philosophy or an ism, whatever thing that you're trying to get their response to. Even if you're not selling something financially, you're trying to sell them an idea. Even if it's to believe in themselves, there are techniques and there are psychologies that you should know about the art of convincing that is really, really important in this business. Because you can be the best emotional speaker in the world and walk away without a paycheck. You can make everybody in the room cry and they never invite you back. You can do all these wonderful things. I've seen people do great stories and people laugh and have a great time, but they didn't sell them anything. They didn't sell a continued engagement. They didn't sell an idea that transformed into action. It was just a momentary entertainment. It was momentary in its resolve. It didn't go anywhere. So I want to talk to you guys as we move into the mastery of speaking. You need to understand that in your speaking you must sell. If you're wanting to do this as a profession, or you're wanting to be invited, or you want to be paid, you better be selling them on the idea of coming back next time and paying for a ticket, or selling them on the idea of telling someone else that they need to come and buy a ticket. You've got to be making an offer. And if sales is a difficult thing for you, you absolutely got to just decide, I'm going to get over that. I'm going to get over selling. So the last thing I want to end with is the story of Grace VanderWaal. For those of you who were at my event 2 events ago, she was brand new. She's a 12-year-old little girl. She went on America's Got Talent, and she sang a song that she wrote herself. She plays a little ukulele, and she was playing this little song. And I knew instantly, because I played the video for the crowd, I knew instantly she was a superstar. And it was pretty obvious that she was going to be, and even all the judges said that she's going to be a monster star in the industry. Well, yesterday or day before yesterday, she went to the finals, and she won for the whole entire nation. She won America's Got Talent. She won $1 million, and she won a recording contract. And she's 12 years old, and nobody ever knew who she was before this. And the point that I want to make with Grace is that she doesn't have any life experience. She doesn't have what you would consider beauty queen celebrity. I mean, she's not like this someone that the world would just stop and want to take pictures of. She doesn't have perfection even in her music. That everyone recognizes that she's not a master of musician. She's not master of music. She also has some issues with her voice and some tonalities and stuff, and so she's not the best singer in the world. But she has a way of communicating that touches the heart of thousands and thousands of people. And the point that I want to make is here 12-year-old little Grace learned to say something, whether she learned it or she just accidentally fell into it. Grace found a way to say something in a way that turned the whole nation toward voting for her and her becoming a superstar. I can almost guarantee you she's never had a lesson in doing what she does. She doesn't know the mechanics of music. She doesn't know the mechanics of storytelling. At 12 years old, she is just telling a story. She writes every one of her stories from her heart, and she's so good at writing this story from her heart that it's magical. And so what I want to talk to you about is, yes, you want to learn the mechanics. You want to learn what, too much of this, too much hand-eye wiggly jiggly and on the stage is distracting for people. One of the things that I do is I lean too much on my podium as I'm standing up front. There's some things that you can do as a mechanically that are probably better not to do. Don't turn your back to the audience. Make sure your body language, don't slouch. There's a lot of stuff. What kind of clothes you wear. There's a lot of things that you can learn about the mechanics, but it's all so secondary to the magic. And that's what I'm hoping that I'll get you guys to. You're going to believe in your story, believe in yourself, learn how to tell this story that connects with other human beings, practice like crazy until you figure out what that is for you, because it's different for you than it is for me. Touch human beings. So I'm not going to go on any further. That's 17 minutes is even more than I normally do. So every week we're going to do a new session until we build out our entire library of Speak Your Life Amazing. In addition to this, I want you guys to all come to our live event. We're doing one in Minneapolis. For every one of you who are ambassadors or above, of course, you get a free ticket. And anybody who wants to speak on stage, you let me know. We want to make available space for you to be able to speak so that you can get some experience, so that you can get some recordings of your stuff done. We want you to come alongside us. We want you to speak at the stage. We want you to learn how to do this. And I want to share my stage with you. That's one of the reasons that we're doing what we do. So I'm going to turn this over to Tony Potter. Tony Potter is a magical human being. His ability to communicate, all of the stuff that you see on our page, we're word crafted by Tony Potter. He is a wordsmith. He's a lover of humanity. He's a lover of people, and he's pretty good behind the pulpit, behind the podium. He can actually make a pretty good presentation. For those of you who haven't seen him, I've seen just about everything he's ever posted, and the guy's got some skills. And I'm not going to tell you his story. I'm just going to let him do it. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony.
Thank you for having me on tonight's call. I truly appreciate it. I love the opportunity that you've created with this platform, Speak Your Life Amazing. Unbeknownst to you, Bill, when we started working together last year more in depth, you really didn't know my story, and I believe it's just been over the last couple of months that I've started to share a little bit more about my journey and some of the challenges that I've had to overcome in my career and in my life. And I really need to pay homage to the Dream Your Life Amazing and the Planner, because it really has helped me map some of the goals and the dreams that I've had for quite some time closer to reality. And one of those goals and dreams that I've had is to help people overcome one of the biggest challenges that I had to overcome in my life, and that is public speaking. And I wanted to just kind of jump almost midway into my journey and kind of share an experience with you, and so you can kind of get a taste or a little bit of a view into the world I was at or living in several years ago. This was in 2010, so it's been about 6 years now, almost 6 years, just under 6 years. And I was scheduled to speak in front of an audience of 2,000 people. And this was here in the United States. And I was, my corporate title was Senior Vice President of North America. So I was over a distributor base of, I want to say, around 150, 200,000 distributors in those countries. And being the Senior Vice President, I was the anchor speaker of this national event the next morning. And I was earning multiple six figures. So I was rewarded well for the effort that I put in, and it was the morning of the event, and so we were about an hour away from me actually having to walk onto the stage and deliver my speech. And my phone was ringing all morning, the hotel phone, my cell phone, and I was getting calls from the stage crew. I was getting calls from all of my fellow executives, and they were wondering where Tony Potter was. And finally, I hear this beating on the door. So we're probably about 45, maybe 50 minutes out from when I was actually supposed to be on the stage. And it was a coworker of mine and a longtime friend who came to the hotel room. And he was banging on the door, probably for a good 5 minutes. And I wasn't in a state to answer the door. And finally, he's like, Tony, it's Mike. It's Tony, it's Mike. And so I get out. I'm still in my boxers and a tank top. And I open the door, and he comes in, and I'm sweating, and I'm almost on the brink of tears. And I've been laying in the bed pretty much all night and all morning with this feeling of terror, this feeling of gloom, this feeling of ultimate disaster in my life. And it was just the kind of the largest panic attack that I had ever had in my life, because I had to go on stage that morning. At that point in time, I was talking to my friend, and I told Mike, I said, I can't do this. And he says, what do you mean you can't do this? And I said, I can't go out there. I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. And I'm just going to quit. And so I literally started putting on my pants, my jeans, and packing up my bags, and started getting ready to leave. He's like, what do you mean you're going to quit? You can't just quit. And I was at that point, all right, where I had been with this company at that point for probably 5-6 years. And like I said, I was making a very good salary. And I was at that brink where getting up on that stage was not worth the title. It wasn't worth the income. It wasn't worth anything. The only thing I wanted to do was get as far away from that place as I possibly could. Luckily, my friend Mike knew about my issues. He knew about my journey, and he talked me through it. He did some breathing exercises with me. He gave me a handful of almonds to replenish my my blood glucose levels. He did everything he could, and he said, now just get in the shower, take a shower, and just really let's get you out there. And he talked me off the ledge. And so at that point, I went down there and I delivered. I started out my speech singing "This Little Light of Mine," and I walked out with a candle, and I was singing that, and I delivered a story, a story that's very dear to me, and that's the story of my father and how he dealt with multiple sclerosis for the large part of my life, and ultimately it was taken from the earth due to cancer. And I curtailed that into a speech about the company's founders and everything, and it turned out it came off fairly well. And I share this with you because I want you, and I know that there's probably a few of you on this particular call or this conference call that you can't relate to what I'm talking about. There's a big difference between stage fright. You know, when I first started, one of the first speeches I had to give, a gentleman that studied directly under Tony Robbins, who's part of his touring speech group, he's like, we all have stage fright. We all have stage fright. And we all get nervous. And we all have nerves. And I can understand that and comprehend that. But on the other end of the spectrum, there's something called stage terror. And I'm not sure if that's a technical term or not. But there's a large group of people, a large population, that the thought of having to address a group of people as small as 3 or as big as 10,000 is one of the most terrifying things. And I know that BJ had shared with everyone that kind of what the ranking of fears are, right? So terrorism is number 1, public speaking is number 2, and death is number 3. And it's just funny that if you think about that, and I heard this on Seinfeld for the first time, that more people are afraid of public speaking. It's a bigger fear, it's a bigger fear than death itself. So there's more people that would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy. And I always chuckle at that, but I can definitely relate to that. And so the contribution that I would like to make to Speak Your Life Amazing is you can think of me as a recovering drug addict. I'm not a recovering drug addict, but there's a reason why we have programs like Alcoholics Anonymous and these different types of groups where it's not a bunch of people that have never been addicted to something that are in that room sharing their stories. Rather, it's people that have overcome that challenge in their life, sharing and relating and empathizing and talking about their journey through that adversity. And that's, I believe, the largest contribution that I will make to this is there will be a group of people as Dream Your Life Amazing and Dream Your Life Rewards continues to grow that will have stage terror. It isn't just a matter of them being a little nervous or, just they have butterflies. There's a whole different level where you feel like the world is going to collapse upon you. And that's the gift and the contribution that I want to make to Dream Life Rewards and the Speak Your Life Amazing program is really helping people understand the journey that I went through. And just in a nutshell, I want to kind of share with you the steps that I went through to overcome the fear and to conquer the fear. Some of the things I did, just to name a few, I first sought out therapy. There's a gentleman that has a therapy program or a method that's called the Lefko method, and I subscribed. He was the first therapist that I went and saw concerning my phobia, which is called glossophobia, and I spent several $1,000s with him. And one of the things that he helps you understand is that what we as humans quite often do is we associate meanings to events. And what I was doing, and it stems all the way back from my childhood, that when I go up on a stage or I'm in a conference room or a boardroom when there's 10 people in there, when Tony Potter makes a mistake, when Tony Potter stutters, when Tony Potter says, or loses his train of thought, that's Tony Potter making a mistake. And what I had done in my mind is I had associated that event, that mistake, with meaning. And that meaning was that I wasn't smart, I was a fraud, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't qualified to be speaking in front of this audience. And what I got from Morty Lefko was this dissociation of that meaning that I associated with that event. And the mantra that he had me say all the time was, mistakes and failure are not bad. Because the track running in my mind, in Tony Potter's mind since he was a child, is mistakes and failure are bad. Mistakes and failure are bad. He helped me understand and dissociate the meaning that I had associated with the event, which was making a mistake. And that was just human. We are human. We make mistakes, and we don't need to associate meaning to that we're any lesser of a person, we don't have knowledge, we're not qualified, whatever weird limiting beliefs that we contrive in our mind based upon an event. That's what he helped me overcome. I was a member of Toastmasters for about 2 years. That was early on, and it was a great platform to be introduced to some really awesome people, a very, 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 very supportive environment. One of my favorite parts of the Toastmasters program, and I'm not sure if they still have it, I'm guessing they probably do, is something they call table topics. So when you convene, our club actually met for 2 hours in the morning, and there's a concept, a topic, it could be anything, and they called them table topics, and they would throw out the topic, and it would go around to each person, and you would just have to deliver an impromptu piece, just your thoughts articulated well. You're being judged by a grammarian. You've got somebody that's called an counter or an ah counter, and they have a buzzer. Every time you say or ah, they're hitting the buzzer. So, I mean, it can be a high-pressure environment, but I found it very beneficial in learning how to think on your feet. That was my Toastmaster step. After that meltdown that I told you about in front of the audience of the 2,000 people, I went and sought out a hypnotherapist. And I spent an inordinate amount of money at that time on the hypnotherapist, and she really helped me truly conquer the fear. But I've worked with acting coaches, singing coaches, and the reason why I worked with singing coaches is I found that there's actually therapy in karaoke, believe it or not. For those of you that are maybe having some stage terror, that was just a thought that I had and something that was very therapeutic to me, so I'd love to share that story. But I've been on a very long journey, and I'm excited to share that with the segment of the audience that can benefit from that, because I can empathize. Some of the things that I've learned along the way, and this applies just to me personally, but I wanted to share these with you, and these are things that I will elaborate in future trainings. that some of the myths that I was told, and again, they're just myths from the perspective of Tony Potter, is that one of the things that I learned in Toastmasters and pretty much every book that you read about public speaking is preparation, preparation, preparation. The more prepared you are, the less nerves you're going to have. And I'm guessing for the average person that has stage fright, that's probably a good prescription for you. Prepare the heck out of whatever it is you're delivering, and that'll give you confidence in the material, and you'll be able to deliver. One of the things that I found from that is that, the preparation, no matter how much preparation I did, the very first real speech that I had to do, I prepared for over 100 hours and recorded every single one of them, played them back, analyzed them, critiqued myself, had my wife critique me. I prepared the heck out of that. And I got up and I delivered a 35-minute speech purely from memory, word for word. I didn't miss a beat, but I had 35 minutes of a pre-canned, pre-written script that I delivered word for word. I did it fairly well. I emoted, but when you compare it to someone that's speaking from the heart, that's speaking from their true emotions and the rawness of just their passion for the topic, and you can get passionate about anything. There were times where I had to deliver annual reports, which are sometimes is not something that's pretty dry material, but you can deliver even annual reports with passion. And if you're doing that, you're going to be effective. So preparation to the max works for some people. It did not work for me. So that was a myth for me. Another myth for me that's always kind of irked me a little bit is you always hear that if you're feeling nervous, and again, it may apply if you just have stage fright, okay? And we're just talking about light butterflies, not terror, is picturing the audience naked. And trust me, I tried that repeatedly. I tried to imagine the audience naked. I tried to imagine the audience in all kinds of precarious dancing and all kinds of things, whatever it was, to help me not see the audience as a big bad wolf. But none of it really worked for me. But where I got the pop and where I think that piece of advice stems from was from an acting coach. And he said that, and I don't know why no one had ever told me this before, and I never learned this before, but this really helped me change the dynamic in what I got from delivering a presentation. And what I got from that acting coach was he said that 99% of the people in that audience, whatever that audience is, whether it be a corporate group, whether it be a network marketing event, whatever that event is, 99% of people in that audience are rooting for you. They want you to succeed. They want you to do well. And instead of thinking of that audience as a big bad wolf or trying to elevate yourself by you being the only one clothed in the room and the joke is on them, think of the audience as a really large battery. They're an energy source. And look at them, connect with them, look into their eyes, see their attentiveness. Ignore the ones that aren't super attentive or looking on their smartphones, but zero in on the people that are feeling what it is you're saying and suck the energy from them and have it fuel you. That for me was a major pop. It was a major turn for me, and that's something that I definitely would love to elaborate more on. Something else I've read in numerous public speaking manuals that for me I feel like it's a myth. I feel like that it kind of goes against what it is that helps someone from my perspective, and that is never apologize. I've seen that numerous times. When you're delivering a public speech, never apologize. And you can read studies out there that apologizing too much can decrease your self-confidence, so I understand where they're coming from. But the more human that you can be when you're on that stage and you make a mistake, you don't want to overly apologize. After every word, every sentence, you want to say, I'm sorry. You don't want to go that route. But the more human that you can be, the more they're going to be rooting you on, the more energy they're going to be feeding you. Humility has done wonders for me. And when I just show that I'm nervous, I address it right up. And I say, you know what? I'm feeling some nerves today, and so I'm going to need your energy today, and get me through this. And if I'm going to make some mistakes, I apologize beforehand. So just be vulnerable. The more vulnerable you are, and again, every audience is a little bit different, but that's what I have found has been most effective for me, is getting naked with them. Instead of them being the naked ones, I'm naked in front of them. I bare my soul to them, whatever the topic is, and let them see that I'm sincere, and the most important thing is that I'm genuine. And this ties into the last myth that just drives me. It's like nails on the chalkboard, and it's the saying that circulates so prevalently in the network marketing industry, and that is fake it till you make it. Fake it, and I understand that there is some psychology to behaving or acting as if, but again, the more genuine you can be. If you're a dry person and you have a dry sense of humor, don't try to fake like a different type of humor. Don't try to be something that you're not, because the more you are faking what it is or who it is you're trying to pretend to be from that stage, the less confidence you will have. Except for this, there is a flip side to that. If you go all the way to the other extreme, where you get up there and you pretend that you are a different character altogether, and you aren't Tony Potter delivering a speech, you are Jordan Belfort, or you are someone else, a clown, whoever it is. If you are truly assuming that character, then, which I have done before, then you can also come across as very influential. You can come across, but you have to basically assume a whole other identity. And I could go on and on. There's three major things that I hope to cover in the project that I'm working on right now, which is a book called Now I Speak. It's not only a chronicle of the journey that I've been through to help people that suffer from glossophobia and suffer from stage terror. The book is basically, will be covering three main areas: conquering the fear for the people that do have it, crafting their story. You hear that all the time, tell to win. Some of the titles that Bill shared with us tonight is about crafting your story. That was a huge sticking point for me. I grew up in Utah, Layton, Utah. I grew up with both my parents. We weren't rich. We were poor during my early childhood, but I got really good grades. I was well balanced. I was an athlete. I went on to an esteemed college. I graduated from college and got a great paying job. I say all of this because when you hear some of the stories that people share about having only one parent, or their mother had 10 different men in the child's life as he was growing up, or having cancer, or recovering from cancer, or surviving cancer, when you compare your story, just like I did early on, to those people, those really moving stories that you hear, you're like, my story sucks. It's so vanilla. It is so vanilla. But I tell you that if you can there's a formula that you can use, and there's a process you can go through to uncover the magic in your story, because we all have it. And that's a big part of Now I Speak. And then something that is very powerful is now turning that, once you overcome that fear, is turning that passion now where you can share your voice comfortably and confidently, turning that into something that can move people. And again, you can move them towards sales, great. You can just move them towards persuasion, right? Whatever it is. But how now do you present that? How do you present like a master? So thank you, Bill, for letting me share. My wife always jokes that I'm like a woman, in that men need to get 7,000 words in a day to feel fulfilled, and women need to get 30,000, and our roles are very reversed. So I think I just got my 30,000 words in, so thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to connecting with you more in the Speak Your Life Amazing program.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We will see you guys on the next one. I'll be sending out the announcements. Appreciate everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.